Hello children, we are discussing chapter 9, Reproduction in Animals. In this video, we will discuss about the test tube babies. In some cases, some women do not able to produce the egg or ovum in their reproductive system, or their fallopian tubes are blocked. In that case, those women will not able to give rise to a young one, give rise to a baby, due to sperm cannot be able to reach the egg or ovum. कुछ केसेस में बच्चे फेलोपियन ट्यूब्स जो है वो ब्लॉक्ड होती हैं, जिसकी वजह से बच्चे एक फीमेल मदर नहीं बन सकती. क्यों? इन दैट केस द स्पर्म्स कैन नॉट बी एबल टू रीच द एग और ओवम. स्पर्म्स एग और ओवम तक नहीं पहुंच सकता. And if that is not happening, that means the fertilization does not take place and egg is not formed. In the absence of an zygote, the zygote development of a baby cannot occur. So, for those cases, an in vitro technique is developed. What do you mean by in vitro? The technique which occurs in the laboratory conditions are known as in vitro techniques. And that such technique is known as IVF, in vitro fertilization. What is in vitro fertilization? Freshly released egg from a female, that is mother, and sperms are taken from the male, that is father. Those egg and sperms are allowed to fuse together outside the body of a female. We had discussed, bache, that humans undergoes internal fertilization, that is fusion of male and female gamete, that is sperm and ovum, will take place inside the female's body, inside the female's uterus. So that development will take place in uterus, bache. Fertilization will take place in fallopian tube. If that fertilization occurs outside by some laboratorical methods, that is known as in vitro fertilization. So, freshly released egg and sperm are fused together outside the body of a female to form a zygote. Then that zygote is allowed to develop for about a week, because in a week the zygote developed into almost an embryo, or very close to that state. Then bache, that developed embryo is allowed to implant inside the mother's uterus, inside the female's uterus. उसके बाद बच्चे जो जायगोट हमने बाहर डेवलप कराया है लेबोरेटरी कंडीशंस में, उसे बच्चे फीमेल के अंदर इम्प्लांट कर दिया जाता है, इंसर्ट कर दिया जाता है, and that is known as in vitro fertilization. Then that implanted, developing zygote will develop into a complete fetus and a normal birth takes place. उसके बाद बच्चे जो नॉर्मल प्रोसेस है वो होगी, जो डेवलपिंग एम्ब्रियो है वो डेवलप करेगा, डिवाइड करता रहेगा, सेल्स बनती रहेंगी, सेल्स डिफरेंशिएट हो जाएंगी, टिश्यू ऑर्गन्स बन जाएंगे और एक कंप्लीट ऑर्गेनिज्म डेवलप हो जाएगा, कंप्लीट ह्यूमन बीइंग डेवलप हो जाएगा. दैट इज नोन एज फीटस, जिसमें विजिबल होंगे पार्ट्स. देन द बेबी व्हिच प्रोड्यूस्ड बाय दिस मेथड इज नोन एज टेस्ट ट्यूब बेबी. क्यों नाम दिया गया बच्चे? बिकॉज जायगोट जो है वो सॉर्ट ऑफ टेस्ट ट्यूब जैसी कंडीशन में बनाया गया. दैट्स व्हाई द बेबीज व्हिच आर प्रोड्यूस्ड, व्हिच आर बोर्न थ्रू IVF आर नोन एज टेस्ट ट्यूब बेबीज. Next topic we'll discuss about the development of an egg. In the previous videos we have discussed, bache, the organisms on the basis of giving birth to young ones are of two types. One is oviparous, the organisms or the animals which give rise to eggs. Those are known as oviparous. And the second one's viviparous, the animals which give rise to a young one, which give rise to a complete organism. For example, humans. Humans do not give eggs, bache. They produce human beings like themselves. Whereas some birds, chickens, hens, they produce eggs. Reptiles will produce eggs. So we'll discuss the development of an egg in a hen by taking the example of hen, bache. Internal fertilization takes place in the hen. Internal fertilization means the fusion of male and female gametes takes place inside the body of female. After the fertilization, zygote will form. Zygote then starts to divide rapidly and repeatedly. तेजी से डिवाइड करना शुरू कर देगा और बार बार डिवाइड करेगा. That will give rise to an embryo, a multicellular stage of zygote is known as embryo. 1 से 2 सेल बनेगी, 2 से 4, 4 से 8, 16, 32, 64, इस तरह से डिवाइड होता जाएगा बच्चे. A mediate stage, intermediate stage, a multicellular intermediate stage, approximately 64 cells, is known as an embryo. During this passing through the uterus, this embryo will develop a lot of protective layers over it. Egg के केस में क्या होगा, इस केस में hen के केस में क्या होगा बच्चे, जो एम्ब्रियो पास कर रहा है यूट्रस से, उसके ऊपर प्रोटेक्टिव लेयर बनती जाएगी. पहले एक बनेगी, फिर और, इट कीप्स ऑन फॉर्मिंग. Those protective layers will ultimately forms a hard shell. और कुछ टाइम बाद बच्चे वो प्रोटेक्टिव लेयर्स किसमें कन्वर्ट हो जाएंगे, एक हार्ड शेल में, एक हार्ड कवरिंग में. एंड दैट विल बी रेफर्ड एज एन एग शेल. उसे एग शेल बोलते हैं, अंडे की ऊपर की कवरिंग. एंड दैट्स हाउ एन एग इज डेवलप्ड. और एग डेवलप हो जाएगा. After that hard shell, the zygote, or you can say the embryo, will go in inactive state. What do you mean by inactive? The embryo is not dead. The cells are not dead, bachche. The cells just don't divide anymore. Cells कुछ समय के लिए उन्होंने divide करना क्या कर दिया है, बंद. So that's how an egg is formed. First बच्चे, internal fertilization takes place, that is fusion of male and female gamete takes place inside the body of a hen. Then zygote is formed. That zygote divide repeatedly and rapidly, again and again, repeatedly and rapidly means quickly, tezi se, to form a multicellular structure known as embryo. When embryo will passes through the uterus, a layer of protective coverings will keep on forming around it, and that will forms the egg shell. That will form the hard covering known as egg shell. Now बच्चे, the embryo which is present in that eggshell is inactive. It does not die. Inactive does not means it is dead. Inactive means it does not divides anymore for some people. उसने divide करना बस कुछ समय के लिए बंद कर दिया. When egg is laid on the ground, then hen will gives the warmth to it. हमने देखा होगा बच्चे, अंडे के ऊपर मुर्गी कुछ समय के लिए जाकर बैठती है. The period for which the hen gives or sits on the egg to give its warmth, से थोड़ा सा warmth देने के लिए, गर्मी देने के लिए, that period is known as incubation. So if someone asks you what is incubation period, the time period for which a hen will sits on the egg to provide it the warmth, to provide it the sufficient warmth for the development is known as incubation. उसे incubation बोलते हैं. That is approximately for 14 days in the normal varieties of chicken. Next, hatching. During this incubation period, bachche, the embryo keeps on dividing. The embryo will developing, keep on dividing. Then the embryo will form the fetus that will develop into a small chick. After the development, after the complete development of the chick inside the egg break, the egg burst open, फट जाएगा, खुल जाएगा, and that will give rise to the birth of a chick. This giving birth or this bursting of the eggshell after incubation by the hen is known as hatching. इसे egg hatching बोलते हैं बच्चे. अंडे का टूटना और उसमें से चिक का बाहर आना. That is what is the development of eggs in hen. Next we will discuss the development of frog. In frogs, the development does not takes place directly into an adult. First, an adult frog will gives a large number of eggs in water. Whensoever a frog becomes an adult, it gives the large number of eggs into the water. Then those eggs will hatch after some time, and a young stage, a fish-like structure is produced named as a tadpole. Tadpole cannot be able to survive without water. Tadpole बिना water के survive नहीं करेगा. So the intermediate stage between the adult and the egg is known as tadpole. In case of frog, these are known as larval stages. इन्हें larval stages बोलते हैं बच्चे. In humans, no such stage is there. हमारे केस में ऐसी कोई stage नहीं है बच्चे. But in frogs, there is an intermediate stage, reproductive growth phase state is there, that is known as tadpole in case of frog. That tadpole is just like a fish. That tadpole, the early stage of the frog, that is known as tadpole, the larva of frog that is known as tadpole, will feed upon the tits of the green plants as well as the algae present in the river body or the water body and grows. This early tadpole, after taking the nutrients, slowly grows up into the growing tadpole. As what do you mean by this growing tadpole? What is the difference? बच्चे slowly and steadily the hind limbs will starts to grow. धीरे धीरे क्या होगा बच्चे पीछे के पैर आने लगेंगे. Then after some more time the growth takes place और growth होगी and then forelimbs will be grown. First of all, eggs will hatch and gives a fish-like structure named as tadpole into the water itself. That tadpole will take the nutrients from the surroundings, from the water body and grows the hind limbs. So, a more developed stage of tadpole will be there. Then after more time, after taking more nutrients, after more cell division, it grows the forelimbs as well. आगे के पैर भी आने लगेंगे. दोनों limbs, आगे के पैर पीछे के पैर आने से क्या होगा? It starts to crawl. और ये crawl करने लगेगा. धीरे धीरे अपने आप को घसीटने लगेगा बच्चे जमीन पर. And after crawling, the frogs come out of the water. और धीरे धीरे वो water से बाहर आ जाएगा. After that, the tail which is visible in this tadpole, this tail resorbed. Resorbed means shrunken inside. अंदर की तरफ सिकुड़ जाएगी बच्चे. And then in adult frog it disappears. You must have seen the frogs. The frogs do not possess tails. And then this young frog will be developed into an adult frog. This kind of development in which the larva, the intermediate stage, will undergo some drastic changes. Drastic means बहुत बड़े बड़े बदलाव हुए. इसमें बच्चे वाटर के बिना सर्वाइवल नहीं था. फ्रॉग बिना वाटर के रहता है बच्चे. इसमें बच्चे टेल है, हाइंड लिम्स नहीं है, फोर लिम्स नहीं है. इसमें फोर लिम्स है, हाइंड लिम्स है, बट टेल नहीं है. So whensoever a larval stage, whensoever a intermediate stage, when developed into an adult through or by passing through some drastic changes, that kind of process, that kind of phenomena is known as metamorphosis. A very important question for 1 mark, bache. What is metamorphosis? Whensoever a young stage that is known as larva, this tadpole is known as larva frog, will be grow or developed into an adult frog by passing through certain drastic changes. That phenomena is known as metamorphosis. So the transformation of the larva into an adult frog by passing through or by carrying through some drastic changes, that is known as metamorphosis. Rather than frogs, some mosquitoes, butterflies, moths, they also shows this metamorphosis. Even in the butterflies and the moths, there are 2 kind of intermediate stages are there. One is larval stage, another one is pupa. So that is the various kind of developments occur in the animals like frogs, like insects, butterflies and moths by metamorphosis.